Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to be here. So we're going to talk about a new way of treating patients. So we're a bioscience company. And over the last century or so, physicians have used blood to treat patients. And we're going to talk about blood today. But in a different context, because you may be familiar with transfusions. That's been a standard of practice of medicine for literally a century. But over the last 30 or so years, there's been quite a bit of advancements in our understanding of the genomes, DNA sequencing, and also how cells work. And we've mapped out all these new pathways for cells, blood cells to work, for instance. And when scientists map out the way a cell works, the next thing they want to do is they want to engineer it in some other way, put molecules into the cell to change the cell from one kind of a cell to another kind of cell. And that's what we're doing. MaxCyte is a company that's directly involved in cellular engineering. We engineer cells for companies. We're kind of like the Intel inside. We don't actually develop the drug, except for one case, but we help other people make their drugs better. And so blood is made up of several components. One is plasma, and then the rest are cells, platelets that stop infection. They'll make clotting, for instance. And then you have red cells that transmit oxygen from your lungs to your organs. Then the third major class of cells are white cells. And the white blood cells are the group that we're focused on. White blood cells make up your immune system. And they keep you healthy. They keep you from fighting diseases. They also are very powerful. If you walk into a room and you get a sniffle because of an allergen, it happens just like that. That's your immune system that works up. The downside is with cancer, for instance, the reason that cancer is so horrible is that cancer cells have a way of evading your immune system so that your immune system doesn't know that that cancer cell is foreign. That's why it can grow basically unchecked. And so what companies are doing, and we're involved in this, is re-engineering white cells so it identifies cancer cells as being foreign and then attacks it and kills it. So MaxCyte is a global company. We came onto AIM in March of 2016. Pam Muir-Gordon was our nomad, is our nomad. And we raised about 10 million pounds in 2016, and then we subsequently raised another 20 million pounds in 2017. Our shareholder register includes BlackRock, River and Mercantile, Legal & General, a number of EIS VCT funds have invested in the company. And we have a really blue chip client base. We have 9 of the top 10 global pharmas. I think 18 of the top 20 are our customers. And we enable the development of really a next generation of drugs in cancer. I'm going to talk about that at some length. Infectious diseases and inherited genetic diseases. And inherited genetic diseases are really kind of a new area for the whole industry and the whole practice of medicine. We have our own product we call CARMA, and we'll talk about that in a bit. This is really a revolutionary new way of taking cells and engineering them to treat cancer. We submitted our IND with the US FDA in 2017, and we expect to be in human trials in 2018, treating other people with ovarian cancer and mesothelioma. So it's a really exciting time for the company. We think really an exciting thing for our business, but also for the field. We license our technology and sell our technology. So we have a business. So in addition to the kind of the whiz-bang science and the future of biotechnology, we also have sales and marketing organizations, field application scientists, and we license our technology to over 50 cell therapy developers who use our technology to develop their own cell drugs. And of those 50, 20 are licensed for clinical purposes. So they use our technology to engineer cells, and those cells go back into patients to treat disease. So it's a pretty advanced technology, very, very well understood. We have revenue growth of double digits every year. Last year, we reported $14 million in revenues. Our gross margins are 90%, pretty good gross margin level. And this is a razor blade business. So we sell the instruments and we sell the disposables. So you use the disposable every time you use the instrument. And the disposables and the instruments both have 90% margins. So it's a kind of unusual razor blade business. Cash position at the end of 2017 was $25 million So everything we do is based on this one technology. It's called flow electroporation. We invented it. It's our technology. We licensed it originally from the Center for Blood Research at Harvard University in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And what it does is it uses electrical forces to drive molecules into a cell. And we do this in large quantities, very high performance. And an analogy would be a cell would be, you know, where like vertical blinds that you see, vertical blinds, right? And you walk through those blinds and they close behind you like that. Well, think of me as the molecule and the vertical blinds as the cell wall. And that's what we're doing. We're using electrical forces to drive these molecules into the cell. It's instantaneous. The cell doesn't know what hits it. And the molecule that we're putting into the cell has been specifically designed by a scientist to have some function. And I'll talk about what those functions are. But that's what we do. So we're the delivery mechanism. We don't design the molecule. We are the means for. We drive the molecule into the cell. And we do that with a large number of clients. And so everything we do is in this one technology. It's a pretty simple business model, frankly. And that is we look for high value applications in human health. That's what we do. And the high value applications are, the first is our CARMA platform, which is, I'll talk about this in some length. This is our own product that we're moving into the clinic. I talked about treating patients in ovarian cancer, mesothelioma this year. We've been working in this space for about a decade and finally have our own product into the area. We also use it for partnering with other cell therapy companies. And these are groups that use our technology for regenerative medicine, regenerating tissue, immuno-oncology, which is re-educating your immune system to treat cancer, and gene editing. And this is where you can actually go in and edit a gene into your stem cells, for instance. And you may have heard of a term called CRISPR, C-R-I-S-P-R, which is a really novel new way of gene editing. There's probably a dozen different forms of gene editing, and we're involved in virtually all those. But we deliver those molecules into the cell. That's what we do. That's what we're really good at doing. There's tremendous upside in this business. Obviously, this is one of those businesses that can go, the sky's the limit, frankly. I mean, it's a biologic, it's a product, it could be exciting. This is where we license the technology to companies. They pay us to use the technology. And as they move through the clinic and become a real product, the chances are slim they're going to be successful, but if they do hit, it's a game changer for the company. And then finally, we sell our instruments to companies like AstraZeneca and Novartis, who use it for small molecule discovery and biologics discovery. And so this is where the razor blade business really helps us build a business. Now, what's interesting about this, these two businesses basically break even on an annual basis. And so the monies that we've raised on AIM have been directed toward CARMA. And so virtually all the money that we have raised goes directly into that CARMA program. So we're able to leverage, for instance, my salary and the CFO and the organization. So we think it's a very efficient way of employing capital against a pretty high risk, high reward program. But again, we have the defensive part of a business that's growing at double digits with 90% margins, and we like that. And frankly, we have found that the investors on AIM like it as well. So let me talk a little bit about CARMA. If there's one thing that I'd ask you to do is look up something called CAR-T, C-A-R-T. This is a new medicine that's been developed using your own blood cells. So what these companies do is they take your cells from the patient. They take your T cells, and your T cells are your immune killer cells. And they put a molecule into that cell that redirects that T cell to find a particular, in this case, leukemia, attach it, and then kill it. There are two products that are approved. These products were first talked about in the press in 2014. They were approved in 2017 and 2018. That's light speed in the biologics and drug discovery business, no doubt. And the reason it's so exciting is that they've been treating about 400 patients, and these are late-stage leukemia patients, where they may have had 6 or 7 courses of therapy. They're at the end of the line. They walked in, and 1/3 of those patients walked out of the hospital with complete remission. It's absolutely amazing. So read up on this. It's a phenomenal new way of treating patients. Clinicians are excited, companies are excited, and these two companies, one is called Kite Pharma, which was founded in about 2013, 2014, just got acquired by Gilead. I think Gilead's in this building. I just saw when I walked in, for $12 billion in the end of 2017. They were founded about 4 years before that. The other company, Juno, which does not have a product approved yet, was acquired in January by Celgene for $9 billion. And so there's $20 billion that were for these two companies in the last 12 months. And the third product is a product by Novartis called Humira, and that's actually being now marketed in the UK. So these are the companies that are the big pharma companies I just talked about, and each of them have placed a bet in this CAR T space. And these are the smaller companies that are developing these sorts of therapies. Now, we have relationships with these companies. As I mentioned, we have 9 of the top 10 pharmas and most of the top 20. And we ask them, why aren't you working in this area? And they say the same thing. One is that the market for oncology products is about $100 billion a year. It's a huge market. And the market for blood cancers is about $10 billion. So 10% is for liquid tumors, are called hematological tumors, and 90% for solid tumors. And you really can't use this technology for solid tumors. So they're looking for a solid tumor play. It's also pretty expensive. Chimera, I think that the price of Chimera is about $400,000 for a course of treatment, so it's very expensive. And it takes a long time to produce the product. It takes anywhere from 5, 6, 7 weeks, which is problematic if you're a patient or a family member, and frankly, if you're a physician. You think about if you were sick and you went to the pharmacist and you got a prescription and they said, well, come back in a month and a half and we'll give you the medicine. So it's very difficult to manage the expectation of patients with this kind of a product. But if you're on your last round of chemotherapy and this is your only choice, you're going to do it. There's no doubt about it. So this is where CARMA come in. We have been working in this space for about 8 or 9 years with the two big players in the field. University of Pennsylvania, a guy named Carl June, and National University of Singapore, a gentleman named Dario Campana. And we have been working with them and using the CAR T product, but instead of using a virus, which is what they use, and many of you may know Oxford Biomedica. So Oxford Biomedica manufactures the virus that's used in the Novartis product. We are using something different. It's called messenger RNA. And messenger RNA is a fast-acting product that gets consumed by the cell and only lasts for about 5 or 6 days. Then the cell goes back to normal. If you put a virus in, it permanently, if you will, re-engineers that cell. So that cell just keeps on going after and killing anything that shows up. So you can't use it with solid tumors, and ours you can use with solid tumors. And that's what CARMA is all about. We've completed our preclinical work at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore. I mentioned that we put this into the FDA in the US, and we're about to start treating patients with the drug. Compared to a product that takes 3 or 4 or 5 weeks, this is our process. Our process takes less than a day, and here's how it works. This is how most cell therapies work. Apheresis is the process you use to take blood cells from a patient. So you hook the patient up to an apheresis machine. There's tens of thousands of these machines in the world. Every oncology center has many. Every hospital has an enormous number. Transfusion medicine. You then use it with our technology and put the messenger RNA into the cell. It's a very high performance, high volume clinical system. You then aliquot and prepare multiple doses. I mentioned it, the cells last for they're engineered for 5 or 6 days, and so then they go away. So the patients will come back and be redosed every 2 weeks. They won't have to get apheresed, they'll just have to get redosed. They may have to be apheresed every couple months, but that's not abnormal for an oncology patient. So we are developing this platform. We are actively in discussions with pharmaceutical companies. This is a long dance to get a deal done with these folks, multiple deals done with these folks. But for us, the important thing is, and the reason we raise the money is that clinical data in other people is what's important. You know, you can't cure a mouse. That's interesting, but it's not enough. You need to be showing actual clinical benefit in patients, and that's what we're driving to do. We've elected something called mesothelin as an antigen. And an antigen is a protein that's on a cell. You may have heard of an antigen called PSA, prostate serum antigen. That's an antigen that they look for to see if your PSA level is up. Antigens are also found on cancer cells. The mesothelin antigen, which is our first product, is directed against all these different kind of cancers, and we're focused on ovarian cancer and mesothelioma. Those are our first two. But that drug can also be used in lung cancer. This is bile duct cancer, pancreatic cancer, colon cancer, colorectal cancer, a number of different cancers, and that's the platform that we're developing right now. So let me talk about our cell therapy programs, and this is where we license the technology to our partners, and they develop the drugs. Now, this is a bit of a busy slide, but it's important because these programs are all managed by and funded by our partners. They pay us for this. When they're in preclinical, they pay us $150,000 per instrument per year, plus a single-use disposable charge, anywhere from $200 to $1,500. And when they're in the clinic treating patients, they pay us $250,000 per instrument per year, plus single-use disposables. We don't transfer the title to the instrument to our partner. We lease it to them, and we license the technology. So we always own the instrument. We give them a very narrow field of use because we want to know what they're working on so that we can support them through the clinical development. These are some of the programs that we're involved with. These are some of the companies. These are the real leaders in the field of cell and gene therapy. And these are the indications we're involved in. And so we're involved in oncology, and these are the indications, everything from renal cell carcinoma, ovarian cancer, leukemia. It's good to note that we have licensed our technology to multiple companies for the same indication. So that gives us a lot of different shots on goal. Everything we do is non-exclusive. We've not done any exclusive deals with anyone. We think that's critically important because we have no idea how big this field can get. And we want to make sure that we're playing as many different games as we possibly can. In the area of inherited infectious disease, we have a relationship with a number of these companies. Editas, Sangamo, Casibia, Biovertiv, CRISPR. These are diseases that are inherited through genetics. Some common ones are sickle cell disease, which you may know, hemophilia, severe combined immunodeficiency disease. This is an interesting one. This is the bubble boy, the bubble baby. These are infants that are born without any immune system. And this is a deal that we've got partnered with Bayer, the German company. And what Bayer's doing is they're taking the stem cells from these patients. These are from the bone marrow, and engineering those stem cells to get back to the patients so that those patients can reconstitute their immune system. So they're now able to fight against infections that you and I we're probably being hit with them when we walked here. Those patients can't. That's why they have to live in a bubble. So they're literally reconstituting the immune system for these patients. And so our business, so that's the whiz-bang science. I think that's really exciting. That's the kind of stuff that we love to do because we're involved in all these different applications, and that gets so we have about 50 employees. Over a third are MDs and PhDs, so we're heavily involved in the science. But here's the business part of this. I mentioned $150,000 per instrument per year here, $250,000 here. And we do a commercial deal. It usually includes a pretty big milestone. The deal with CRISPR was about $1 million, plus that there's multi-million-dollar milestones for clinical development. And then when the product actually is commercialized, there's a sales-based milestone. So they're very high value. And so our business is to create as many shots on goal as we can, help these clients move from the research to the clinical phase, and eventually to commercial phase. And you can see how this has accelerated over the years. So in 2015, right before we went public, we had about 30 of these programs. Now we have over 50. So we've really been able to accelerate the relationships with these new companies to build out this franchise where we are the integral part of their cell-based therapies. And again, as I mentioned before, I'm going to back up, the regulatory agencies are accelerating these approvals because these are diseases that no one else can treat. They're highly unmet medical needs. And what we're doing is working with these companies to ensure that they're using the technology not only today, but when they finally become commercial products. Last but not least is the business where we sell instruments and disposables. And this is where companies use our technology not to use a cell from a patient to get back to the patient. This is where they use a cell to do studies, to do research, to do screening for drugs. So AstraZeneca uses our technology in a number of applications. Roche, Novartis, most of the big pharma companies, Genentech use it. And they use it to improve the productivity of their drug discovery operations. They shorten development times. Nobody buys science because it's cool. Nobody buys science because it's interesting. They buy this because we serve a great economic benefit for them. And these are some of the benefits. We're making an Ebola vaccine, our technology is for a Ebola vaccine, a vaccine for Marburg virus. These are where no other technologies can solve the problem, and we're able to do that. So news flow. CARMA, I mentioned the IND. We're looking to get our IND cleared this year. We'll be in patients in 2018. We'll also be announcing the expansion of the CARMA programs into new indications beyond mesothelioma and ovarian cancer. We're always developing new cell therapy programs. We'll be announcing those as they occur. We just expanded our leadership team. We expect to do that a bit more. We just hired our first chief medical officer, Dr. Claudio Ullman, who joined us from Takeda Pharmaceuticals, one of the largest global oncology companies. He used to work for the National Cancer Institute, so he's been a great addition to the company. So summary, CARMA is first in class. We think it's a very, very exciting program. Our investors in our AIM fundraising have agreed with that. In cell therapy, we're really focused on being a great partner, working with companies, solving their problems, helping them move from the clinical into the commercial phase, where there's, we think, tremendous upside when they actually get a product approved. And then there's strong growth in our business. We've been growing at double digits every year, and we see that for the foreseeable future. Revenues last year, 2017, were $14 million. Gross margins have been very stable at 90%. We invested about $7.5 million in CARMA in 2017. Operating expenses, we run the business at about a $1.5 to $2 million loss because we think, and our board believes, that there's tremendous upside in this business. We're just at the beginning of cellular therapy, and we really think it's a time to do, pardon the expression, kind of a land grab. We want to make sure that this is part of all the major cell therapy programs that are going on out there. We're building out a rather sophisticated sales and marketing organization, bringing in people from larger companies who can help making this global, expand our footprint in Asia and also in Europe. And that's our story. So thank you. I hope I have enough time to answer some questions.
Why did you float on AIM?
So the simple answer is, when we looked at raising money in the US, they didn't like the basic business of selling kits and licensing. They wanted us to just do CARMA because it's more of a biotech play. We didn't want to do that because we think that there's an inherent long-term value in building these relationships. When I came over here and talked to the investors on AIM, they liked that dual business model. They liked the fact that there was a defensive part. They liked the fact that we actually were a business and not just a biotech project. And they liked the ability of a large upside. And so it's been, I think, a really good move for us. Again, we raised 30 million pounds at I think, pretty reasonable valuations. And I think all the investors are pretty satisfied with the performance so far. Yes, sir.
Can you talk a bit about the competitive landscape? Because I looked at this sector recently, and there seemed to be an absolute multitude of companies all going for a land grab and all losing money as a result, like you. So could you talk about who the competitors are and why you are going to be the best, most profitable company in due course?
So there's two parts of this story. The one part is all the companies are losing all the money, which are these companies. And these are our clients. Okay, so We want to build that. We love companies that have raised $100 million or $200 million in their Series B, and they incorporate us into their manufacturing process. So in the cell therapy space, it's very competitive. I think I didn't show you this. Let me just show you this number. In 2017, there was $7.5 billion invested in cell therapy, fresh capital into cell therapy, and $2.2 billion from big pharma into the space, front-end payments. That doesn't include the $20 billion I talked about for those two. So there's a lot of big companies right now believe that this space is huge and will get even bigger, and that's why they're making major investments. We compete against MaxCyte, and our delivery is a different competitive set. So we compete against companies like Thermo Fisher, Lonza, who else? Miltenyi, companies that have different, Oxford Biomedica, different delivery technologies. We believe ours is superior because it's large scale, it's high performance, and you can tell by the kind of the companies we keep, it's becoming the adopted standard.
You said that the investors in the States didn't really understand this. Can you talk through your investors and why you think they have a better understanding of your business than the people in the States? Yeah. I.e., names and details. I.e., they have got a particularly good research team in this area of investing.
Yeah. So when we talk to some of the big crossover investors in the States, they have two units usually. One unit is a biotech unit, right? And they're looking at CARMA. They love that CARMA deal because they can value that. They can look at, ovarian cancer could be $1 billion product, and they do their net present values and they say it's worth X, and they're willing to make the investment. They have another group, it might be another investor group, that looks at life science companies. And these life science companies are kind of our $14 million top line. It's growing at double digits, 90% margins. They throw a multiple against revenues against that, 7 or 8 times multiple. Those two values don't coexist, and the risk reward profiles are just very different from an investor perspective. And in the US, those are completely different specialist investors. What we're finding here is that you have more life science generalists and more life science specialists who will play in the Absenzas of the world and the Oxford Biomedicas, as well as some of the pure play biotechs. So I think over here that the investors are willing to do some of the parts valuation and invest accordingly. And in the States, they're all pretty much pure play, either high value, high risk biotech, or they're life science investors. And we're kind of a hybrid of both. And we could find very few investors in the US that would take an investment in that part.
You've got about £30,000 worth of shares being traded per day. Yes. Over here, which is, frankly, that's a rounding error for somebody who's trying to build a position.
Yeah, it's a great point. But for us, from a company's perspective, we've been able to raise the money we need to get to the next valuation, and that's what we're trying to do. Nobody's gotten out. None of our existing investors have gotten out. So everybody's in the socket.
Doug, you mentioned some of the parts. Could you give us an idea how analysts, Panmure Gordon, for example, value the 3 different components of the company?
I will try, but I refer you to Julie Simmons's her evaluation. Basically, there's 0 for CARMA in the sum of the parts. And the way when I talk to Julie about it, it's either you believe it and it's worth the sky, or you don't believe it. It's like, I use the phrase penthouse or outhouse, and there's no middle ground. And then she's valuing the business of the licensing plus the sale of the business at, I think, 7 or 8 times revenue because of the margins and the growth. That's how she's looking at it. So those are the sum of the parts.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.